Hello again. Among the many subjects about which I have no expertise and nothing but the most rudimentary knowledge are agriculture, fisheries, coal mining, and the generation of electricity. Nevertheless, I do possess a fairly good memory, and I clearly recollect visiting a power station in the 1960s which burned coal to generate electricity. Most power stations in those days were coal-fired, and although this certainly produced pollution, it was a pretty efficient way of generating electricity. Crucially, it meant that we did not need to import either electricity from Europe nor liquefied gas from the United States and Qatar. In the same way, we had big fishing fleets, like the one at Grimsby, which roamed the North Sea and Atlantic Ocean, making us self-sufficient in fish. Then too we had so much agricultural land that when the country was blockaded, as happened during both the Napoleonic Wars and also the First and Second World Wars, we were able to be self-sufficient in food such as wheat, milk and bread. And meat. I'm sure that I'm not alone in knowing this. So much for the past. Today we have to import electricity from Norway. Last Wednesday we imported 10% of our electricity from Norway because we're no longer able to generate all that we need. To fuel our power stations we also have to import wood to burn in them instead of coal. This is so-called biomass, which is basically forests in Europe and America which have been chopped down, sawn into pieces and shipped over here so that we can burn them in power stations. We also have to buy gas from abroad and burn that as well. In the meantime, we have closed down all our coal mines. We still have almost unlimited stocks of coal, sufficient at least for several centuries. In the same way, we have resolved not to exploit any of the oil or gas which may be found either in the North Sea or by fracking on the mainland. For reasons I do not really understand, both the fishing industry and farming are both horribly neglected, and we find it easier to import food rather than grow it or catch it ourselves. All this means that we are very vulnerable in a crisis and at the mercy of other countries. If the European countries like Norway, which currently supply us with electricity when we need it, were to cut off the supply, then we would be having power cuts. If we were unable to buy the wood and gas which we burn in our power stations, which comes from thousands of miles away, then we would also have power cuts. If we were unable to buy fish and other foodstuffs from abroad, then people in this country would go hungry. All these hazardous situations could be solved if we had a government which concerned itself entirely with the interests of Britain. Reopening coal mines would make us self-sufficient in electricity. Drilling for oil and gas, both in the North Sea and on land, would mean that we could reduce our reliance on imports. Agriculture and fishing could both be revived, and we could work towards feeding our country on what we ourselves produce. As I say, I'm no kind of expert, but then I do not need to be to understand basic points like these. The world is currently very uncertain and dangerous, and it is clearly mad to rely upon the goodwill of foreign countries to keep us supplied with food and power. We have persuaded ourselves that we owe a greater duty to the world than we do to our own citizens, and that for this reason we have a duty to close down our coal mines, lest the burning of fossil fuels contributed to global warming or climate change. This at a time when India and China are opening and operating new coal-fired power stations almost every day. We are unable even to produce new steel now because the only plants we have to rely upon use electrical heating rather than coal. Just think of that. This is the country where the Industrial Revolution began, and we are now unable to produce steel because we are too virtuous to mine coal to power the process. One has great sympathy with Donald Trump's enthusiastic exhortation on becoming president the other day that the country should drill, baby, drill. If only we had a leader in Britain who would look at all those coal mines which we closed down and say, dig, baby, dig.